Jake here with Action for Liberty. Welcome back to the show where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I can't wait to talk about today's show, the material of this show today, because it's Tim Walz and his last ad for this political season, and what a doozy it is. Joining me is Mr. Straight-Laced himself, Young William. How you doing, Young William?
Jake, I'm doing A-okay. We had a fun Halloween party last night.
I brought my A game, didn't I?
You did.
People don't realize this. I have a really haunted house every Halloween, and William's first time participating. He did wear short sleeves, unfortunately, so I had to cover him in long sleeves because monsters never wear short sleeves. But you did enjoy your part playing that evil clown, right?
Yeah, my voice is a little gone if you couldn't tell, but yeah, it was fun otherwise.
You did start losing your voice last night. Reading your comments is Bridget, as always. How you doing, Bridget?
I'm doing excellent and very happy that I got to bed early and kept my voice.
Yeah, that's right. You were you were feeling a little under the weather, weren't you?
Yeah.
Maybe next year you'll have to check out the infamous haunted house. All right. So first of all, let us know where you're watching from if you're watching live, because we'd love to see if we're in the rocks and cows territory, as Tim Walz would call it. And any comments, feel free to just write on one of the, what are we doing? 3 platforms, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. So just comment on there. We'll try to get your comments. Let's get right into it. Last political ad of the season. This is Tim Walz. In his own words, a shocking admission. What I'm going to do is, so you've not seen this, right, William? Is that right? This
Ran
is the
out
first
of time, so
Okay.
I've not seen it.
All right, so William came in. He came in just right at 11, basically. And so he hasn't watched this video. So we're going to play it full out, all right? Just 30 seconds, that's all it is. And then we're going to go back and we're going to diagnose the things he said. And Dawson noticed something beforehand, so we got to get into some technical aspects. So go ahead and play the video for the first time.
Whether you live in greater Minnesota,
in the suburbs or the cities,
our rights and our future are on the ballot.
Scott Jensen wants to ban abortion and take away our right to make decisions about our own bodies.
And he's proposed cutting education to give new tax breaks to the wealthy.
We won't let that happen.
We'll fully fund education, support law enforcement, and cut taxes for the middle class.
And protect our rights always.
Because that's how we move Minnesota forward.
All right, we're going to get into it. First of all, to anyone that ever wants to aspire to be a Republican candidate, those are the Democrat talking points. They're always the Democrat talking points. They're always going to say those talking points no matter what you do. You could fully fund education, which that's the most generic term ever. So you could fully fund education, and they'll still say you're not going to fully fund education because it's like that moving goalpost, right? So those are the talking points of the Democrats, nothing new. But what I thought was really fascinating is let's play that from the beginning here, and I'm going to have you stop what Tim Walz said. It's actually very true. Go ahead, Dawson.
Whether you live in greater Minnesota,
in the suburbs or the cities,
our rights and our future are on the ballot.
Stop.
Scott Jensen wants...
Yes, they are. That's what this election's about, right? It's about inflation and crime. It's about your rights, right? Really, inflation is about your rights because without you knowing, basically, unless there's people like us who've been tracking what causes inflation, people literally didn't know that their wealth was being stolen from. That's what inflation is. Your wealth being stolen from you from reckless spending policies during COVID, okay? So that is on the ballot here in Minnesota. Thank you for acknowledging that, Tim Walz. Let's go pull up the list of Walz's failures, and let's just see how many of those things deal with freedom. All right. Ready, William? First one, locked us in our homes, shut down schools, businesses, and churches. Does that have anything to do with freedom?
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
Like, for instance, the biggest infringement in modern day on our rights, right there, from Tim Walz. This wasn't like the legislature decided to do this. This was Tim Walz himself deciding to lock us in our homes, which is what brought us onto the stage here, fighting against Tim Walz 2.5 years ago. Basically, about a couple days into him shutting down Minnesota. We're like, that's our issue right there. All right, bring that screen back up. Number 2 is put COVID patients in nursing homes unless they did it against their will. Is that I don't know. Do we call that a freedom issue?
I
just a
think
bad-
that qualifies as a freedom
You think
issue.
so?
I think so.
Because he sentenced them to death, basically? Or, oh, you know what? You're right. Because he infringed on the health freedom of the people in the nursing home that had nothing that they could do when they accept these new
Well, this
patients.
is where the majority of COVID deaths in Minnesota came from,
There you
these
go.
long-term care facilities.
That's right. All right, next one. This one clearly, what are we doing here? There we go. Mandated all Minnesotans wear masks. What do you think?
Well, that's a freedom issue, and it violates state statute as well.
That's right. Two things. A double whammy, right?
Right.
And also, the governor can't just create laws, too. That's another big constitutional right. All right, next one is allowed thugs to burn down 3rd Precinct. Infringed on the rights of people to live safe in their communities, right?
Right. Well, and taxpayers probably didn't want to see that either.
That's right.
Especially the taxpayers in Minneapolis.
Here's another big one. Spent our surplus money while prices kept climbing. All right. You know, if you had, here's how money is a freedom issue. If you earn money and all that money was taken from government, then you have essentially lost your rights. What do you call that? When your labor is given and you don't get compensated. What is that called?
Sounds a lot like slavery.
Slavery, there you go. Okay. So if you understand how taxes work, taxes are theft, right? And the more they take, the closer you are to indentured servitude, right? It's as simple as that. And literally the Democrats want it closer to indentured servitude. The party that did not free the slaves, by the way. So this is a big freedom issue when they've overtaxed us and they don't give you that money back. So your family has less freedom to go spend and buy gas and food and all the other things. All right, next one. What's the next one here, Dawson? Kept making payments to $250 million fraud scheme. He definitely allowed those fraudsters to be more free and loose with that money they had. And then, of course, lied about his involvement in fraud, which I don't know if that's necessarily a freedom issue. So these are just like the highlights, right? There's a lot more issues of his failed record. We could go on and on. But just looking at that, that first one, locked us in home, shut down schools, massive freedom issue. And so for him to go in this ad and go, this issue's about freedom. Yes, it is. So let's keep playing. Let's see what he says about freedom.
Wants to ban abortion and take away our right to make decisions about our own bodies.
And he's proposed cutting education to give new tax breaks to the wealthy.
We won't let that happen.
We'll
Okay, so
fully
stop
fund
again. So, according to Tim Walz, who cares about freedom, and that's on the ballot, what we want to ignore is the freedom of the unborn. Okay, like the right to life. Isn't that a pretty big freedom, William?
I would say so. I'd say so.
Then the next one is, like, if you're wealthy, apparently you have no freedoms and no rights. So, like, we just got to tax you to oblivion. Just like I just said, closer to indentured servitude, that's what the Democrats care about. So this is what they think in terms of freedom. Now let's go back and let's finish this thing up.
That happen.
We'll fully fund education, support law enforcement, and cut taxes for the middle class.
And protect our rights always.
Because that's how we move Minnesota forward.
Okay, so then Flanagan doubles down. We'll protect your rights always. Like, am I in like bizarro world here? Do these guys literally not understand what they just did to Minnesota over the last 2.5 years?
Well, and courts have ruled on this as well. They ruled that Governor Walz violated the Constitution by prohibiting you from going to church. That's a blatant violation of the First Amendment. Everyone knows it.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Biden was, in that infamous speech. What do we call that speech? You know, the one with the ominous red
background.
Is there a name for that speech?
There
at this
should
point?
be.
There should be. We need to call it. What's that? I was going to think of the V for Vendetta, but I can't even think of the.
Well, yeah, that's what people relate it to. Like,
Yeah, but what's the name of the politician?
Oh, I don't know the name of the politician.
Dawson put a note there. We got to come up with a name for that speech to keep referencing it.
Yeah.
So anyhow, in that speech, he's talking about the MAGA people. They don't care about the Constitution or freedoms. It's like the guy that lost in the U.S. Supreme Court saying you can't just mandate vaccines on the American workers. Like, this is the. So it's like they are so ignorant to this idea that they stole freedom. What do they think they did? Like, get in the psyche of these people. What did they think they did when they did these COVID lockdowns?
They're They're protecting your health. They're looking out for you because you obviously don't know how to look out for yourself, Jake.
Yeah, well, but that's not right, because in the debate last week, Tim Walz said, "I trust parents. I trust Minnesotans."
Did he actually say that? He
Yes!
trusts parents? He did not say that.
Yes, he did. And Jensen, in a good rebuttal, basically said, "Well, then why don't you trust the parents when it comes to vaccinating their kids?" Because this is the whole thing is Jensen, Walz, he literally says, we want more local control over education, which is bullshit too. So he's like, big on education apparently, right? That's the whole moniker of the Democrat Party, even though they shut down schools. So they really trust parents. They have to say that line because they're so fearful of being considered just, a proponent for the teachers union. They're for the teachers.
These are the people being bankrolled by Education Minnesota who are being forced to say that they're against school choice. I mean, how do you argue that you're giving parents more choice by taking away their ability to send their kids where they want them to go?
Well, what about the people that can't afford the private schools?
That's school choice.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. You're giving the parents the ability to send kids where they want to go through tax
but William,
credits.
the prices will be too high and it'll exclude them, and then it bankrupts all the public schools, and so then
That's the only real argument I've heard is that it bankrupts the public schools. I don't believe that for a second.
Well, I
either.
know. I mean, the ridiculousness of this is it's competition. That's what it's good. Competition brings down prices. Right. Almost always. Like, is there ever been a case where it doesn't?
There are probably people who'd like to argue with that about.
Well,
I don't. None come to mind.
Well, if you can argue with that, go ahead and make a comment about it. So yeah, I just am like, this is the last ad, and then Dawson's like, hey, I noticed something from it. So go back to the beginning of the ad, because what's really fascinating is it's just the politics of it. You guys can't tell is. We love the suburbs and we love greater Minnesota. Really, he calls them rocks and cows. But go ahead, just look at the beginning of this video.
Whether you live in greater Minnesota,
In the suburbs or the cities.
Stop it.
Our rights-
Okay, right? So now we've included all of Minnesota. We're one Minnesota, whether you live in the country or you live in the suburbs or the city, really. And their whole game is basically, let's win the suburbs. Walz doesn't care about greater Minnesota. That's pretty obvious. The cities is always in the back pocket of the Democrats. Although, and when I make some predictions, because we're going to make some predictions on the show today, the issue is they're losing votes in the city, and not as many people are going to vote. So that's a big problem for the Democrats here. So Dawson's like, hey, I noticed something. What did you notice, Dawson?
Well, put simply, he is on a green screen, which would not be the biggest deal because we know that.
Oh no!
Look at William.
Oh, Tim, what are you doing, man?
It's absurd. So I'm gonna pull up the video really quick
Okay.
and just pull out the examples that I see. One, the color grading on his pants is terrible. You can see the green chroma key highlight. I don't know how it's gonna show on the stream itself, but there is absolutely green on the side of his pants here.
Did you have to zoom in? Because we cannot see it from our...
I can try to zoom in. I don't know if it's going to work very well. Yeah, because YouTube keeps it at the same size
Gotcha.
the whole time. But actually, hold on. I think that I can.
Can you get like a screenshot as we keep going through the show? Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Okay, so down here by his pants, you can absolutely see,
I can see it.
a
you
color
see that?
difference there.
Oh.
Are you able to zoom in anymore? This is
Yeah.
kind of perverted, though. Look at the area we're zooming in on.
Yeah, sorry
Tim
about
Walz.
that.
All right, there we go.
We can't get away from it. And then, so that's the first problem that I saw with this.
Well, I mean, that right there, case closed, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But now I just want to hit it even harder because with the amount of money that they're spending on this kind of thing, you would have thought that they could get someone to do a good green screen, right? The next point that I had was that this entire background, it's one filter. It's a Gaussian blur, and you can tell because...
Wait, what did you say?
It's called a Gaussian blur.
Oh, a Gaussian blur.
So what
And
does that mean
you
for us,
can mostly
Don?
see it. Well, first off, it's just a type of blur, and it's commonly seen with trees like this. These patterns that the leaves make, that's what makes it Gaussian. This curve
So
here.
you'd say it's more common for pictures as opposed to like video?
Yes. Basically, they took a photographic filter and put it on video, which is not
Interesting.
how it's supposed to work.
But we got leaves blowing, don't we?
Yes, it is a video.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but you can put a filter on a video, but it's just the wrong kind.
Interesting.
After that, yep, there's color messed up on it.
No, go to Tim Walz's top of his head. See, that doesn't look right either.
No, it does not. And
Yeah, like it's
can
bright
tell
lights
you.
on his head.
Yep. So that's actually a massive issue because he's standing outside, right? And he's got one white light shining straight down on top of his head and on top of his shoulders here because it's balanced evenly, right? But look in the background. Where is the sun in this shot? It's way out in front of him because look at the shadow on this tractor. He should have
Ah,
a shadow
look at
right
this
here.
guy.
Man.
He should have shadows casting right here. There's no way that this isn't a green screen with studio lighting.
Why is this the first
Wow.
time we're hearing about this? People need to be making a bigger deal about it.
I think in this business, green screens are generally okay. It's so fake here because you're pretending that you're in Greater Minnesota. You literally say it.
Well, you remember when people made a big deal about the Scott Jensen ad? They used stock footage, and they said it was from different parts of the state when really it
Didn't they
wasn't.
say something was like from Russia or something like that? Or am I thinking something?
No, you're thinking of the Weiler
Oh, the
campaign.
Russian submarine? Yeah.
Yeah. No. The DFL got all upset because Scott Jensen was using stock footage and saying that these were different parts of the state of Minnesota or something. So why does the same principle not apply here? Tim Walz didn't go to Greater Minnesota to get this stupid ad done.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Well, that's what's funny about this to me is, like, Tim Walz doesn't leave. Like, he doesn't go. Jeez, has he been to Greater Minnesota? He did Rochester. He went to, was that Bernie?
I think that was Keith
No,
Elson
Kamala.
and Bernie.
Kamala Harris. Wasn't that in
Oh.
Rochester?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Greater Minnesota, him. It was Rochester, probably Duluth. Everything else is flyover country.
Yeah. I mean, you can ask Jesse. He went to Greater, Nashua?
Nashville.
To get that
Nashville.
excellent picture.
Yeah,
of him
yeah.
trolling
Well, it's a
Walz.
rarity for him.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess he's made a couple appearances. But it's really funny because he calls it Rocks and Cows territory. Well, how did he start this video out again? Whether you're from Greater Minnesota, how did he say, or from the country?
Whether you live in Greater Minnesota,
Yeah. So whether you live in Greater Minnesota, well, you clearly don't.
So, Dawson, I'm guessing Peggy's in front of a green screen as well, then.
That's my guess, but it's harder to tell because this one, even if it is in front of a green screen, it's done right. Like, this is a well done chroma key if it is. I'm leaning towards it probably is a green screen, but she could also totally be here.
Well,
Right,
and
'cause
that
that's where
looks
she
like a
lives.
place she'd be hanging out anyhow.
Right.
Right.
Like, that's the thing about Tim Walz. Now, go back to Tim Walz's footage, and then we'll get to some of your comments here. I'm sorry, but this was just too interesting. What am I apologizing? I'm sure people are just as interested in this as I
This
am.
is interesting.
That flannel's never been worn before, right? That sucker is nice and fresh and new.
Well, I've seen him wear a similar style before.
Yeah, but not that one. Or if I mean, look at this sucker. This thing, unless that one's pressed.
I mean, regardless.
That's it. He pressed his flannel. Whether you live in Greater Minnesota and you press your flannel like me, like I'm wearing flannel too.
Well, it's just
Clearly I
pandering.
don't press this stuff.
It's pandering. He's doing a video about Greater Minnesota. He's like, well, let me break out the flannel that I totally always wear.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Well,
Seriously?
it's better than Fetterman's black hoodie. I saw a Fetterman wearing a white hoodie the other day too. It's the same thing as Fetterman. I'm one of you. I'm wearing the flannel. Look. I mean, guys my age, that's what we wear. Someone's just making fun of me. Oh, Nathan Wiesenberg's wife, Jennifer. She was making fun of me. She's like, oh yeah. She sent me something. She's like, I saw Jake. How did she put it? Like not a model, but a mannequin probably. Jake mannequin at the store the other day. There's just a guy wearing jeans and a flannel. I was like, oh okay. I guess I got a thing. And I'm just in the same class as Tim Walz. Look at this thing though. I was fascinated, and Bridget and I were talking about this from a fashion standpoint. Look at that second row of pockets. That's a very practical shirt. Like, can you imagine the things you could use? You could stuff so much more in that. You wouldn't even need a fanny pack anymore because you got that second row of pockets there.
If he actually did door knocking, he could have all his lit in there
That's right.
instead of a fanny pack.
Yeah, and because he's a drug dealer, he's the number one pharmaceutical rep in Minnesota, for Pfizer and Moderna. Look at all those things he could stuff in their drugs, right? What do we got? Let's read some comments here.
Okay, so let's see. So Scott Como says, well, Mr. Ventura, a.k.a. Light Rail starter himself, endorsed Walz, so that's good enough for me. And then he's clearly joking. But let's see. Rachel Williams, speaking of the mandating the vaccines and masks and stuff, says they think they were saving lives and they were being virtuous. But here is Scott Como again. He says, my school is asking for a referendum, and their keynote is lack of state funding. Who is lying, Walz or the schools?
Well, I mean, Walz is going to say that the Republicans didn't fully fund the schools. That's always what they say.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. It's the biggest scam ever. That they're always saying that they're not fully funded, but there's no definition of being fully funded, which was another good performance by Scott Jensen. If you didn't watch our video, well, everyone's watched the video from last Friday because it's done very well. That we break down the points that Scott Jensen made. He clobbered Tim Walz, right? You know what, William, you weren't in here last Friday. God, I
wasn't
would have
able to
loved
make
having
it.
you here. I miss you too much. I'm glad you came to our party last night. We need Mr. Straight-Laced.
If you do these things consistently on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I can be here. When we start
No,
doing the
that's
Friday
fair.
stuff, that's when it gets
I don't
hard.
control when things happen. Jeez. All right. What else we got here, Bridget?
Well, we have Nathan Wiesenberg chiming in saying, I'm assuming he's referring to you, that you're copying his style. So
I don't think anyone would believe that I'm copying his style. I have sleeves on my shirt. What are you talking about?
Well, also,
And I've
on
never
that,
taken a picture with a gas can.
Nobody's gonna understand that reference, Jake.
Oh, yeah, but he does. And Liberty Longbeard will get it.
But you're not pretending that you're from Greater Minnesota.
Well, what is
You'll
Lake
tell
Elmo? You
people-
can't. Well, Dawson.
No, that's
you,
the Metro.
Dawson, you came out to my house yesterday. What do you consider that?
Well, I would consider it Greater Minnesota, probably. I actually have never heard the definition of Greater Minnesota, so.
It's within the 7-county metro.
Well, Dawson's from Detroit Lake, so that's why he doesn't.
Well, so that's
That's why he's never heard Greater Minnesota, right? 'Cause
Dawson,
it's
what
just like-
county is Detroit Lakes in?
Becker.
Yeah,
Becker
so that's I think that's considered Greater Minnesota.
Oh, you don't know where Detroit Lakes is. That
I've
proves your
been
point,
once.
Dawson.
Does
Young
it?
guys don't know where Detroit Lakes is.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Like it's like up by North Dakota, basically.
I must be thinking of it.
Like you're like, yeah, I think it's included Greater.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, man. It's nowhere around here.
Is it? Is it just me?
Yeah. I think I'm considered the burbs, even though there's
Yes.
farmland all around my house. It's still the burbs because
Well,
you're
yeah.
right. We're in the Washington County.
Well, let's let the rocks and cows that are watching tune in. Is Lake Elmo in what was that, Washington County?
I'm not gonna even put this up to vote. It's Washington County. It's greater. It's not Greater Minnesota.
Okay,
my
thank
heart is Greater Minnesota, right? Like that's especially this time of season. That's where I am most of the time. I'm a big outdoorsman, but unfortunately, I live in the bird. Well, how else am I gonna do this? I'm not gonna drive 2 hours every day to come to the studio to present these great videos for you, right? So I got to kind of be close to the studio, but my heart is definitely there. I mean, we got a family cabin up north of Bemidji, so, and I love I'll be in the Boundary Waters here soon, so that's where my heart's at. All right, Dawson, did you have any more comments on the green screen here? Is this convincing to everyone?
Yeah, I only had one more. I'm sure that I'm convincing people because I'm right. But there's one very big point that they missed, and the color that's lighting up his head and shoulders is just straight up the wrong color. That's not sunlight. That is studio white. That's why your scene is lit with warm colors, because you don't want to have plain 000 light on you.
We are actually in a studio. This isn't a green screen, though. See, I can touch this. I can move these books.
Ridiculous.
Right here. Oh, you know what? Craig wants to be on the podcast. This is we got to get the Godfather on the podcast. This guy's hilarious. Craig Kruckerberg, zoom in on Craig. We're gonna have him on the show here. This guy, he is one of the most fascinating individuals in Minnesota. He would be a really good governor of Minnesota. Shit would get done. But this guy, Success Comes Overnight, You're Going to Jail. Good book. Go check it out. I don't know how, Craig, I don't even know how people get your book. But, here's another one. Speaking of Minnesota, this is, if you're interested in the Constitution, this is from my friend David Benner. And he just came out with a book, a newest book on Thomas Paine. And this is his first book, so he's got 3, and this one's called Compact of the Republic. This is a really good book if you understand the founding of this country. Anyhow, no green screen here.
How much are they paying you for the ad spots, Jake?
Exactly.
That's a good question. I need to talk to Benner about that. He's just good buddies. Like, we go back to college. So let's do predictions. What do you think?
Predictions
On the
for
election.
everything?
Yeah. Well, let's start with this, okay? Because every year or every election year, I like to do a prediction 1 week out. I should have had this screenshot for you, Dawson. But what I predicted, let me see, where's my phone? I'm going to read you what I wrote in 2020. So this is 1 week out from Election Day. Now, where the heck is it? Is your phone full of screen captures? Am I like an oddball for doing that?
Oh, no, that's like my phone.
Okay, so I'm not that crazy for doing that?
No.
Yeah, it's like when you go through my phone, I've got kids' pictures and basically screenshots. And I guess the idea is that I'll remember to send these out or to do something with them, some action item, and then I think I don't ever do anything with them. Or I send them in like a text thread. All right. And that's the problem is I got too many dang texts here. Let's see. Where is this?
Hey,
Yeah,
Dawson, I
oh.
just sent you a link to your email if you want to go to that page and throw it up on the screen.
Dawson, we have a shout out to you in the comments. Yeah, Brown8899 on YouTube says Dawson with the amazing analysis.
Thank you very much, Brown8899. I appreciate it.
All right, here we go. This is my prediction 2020. So this was October 28th, 2020. I got it as a Facebook reminder. Republicans win back 4 to 6 seats in the House. So they won back 5 seats, giving Democrats only a slim majority, which is what we ended up having. I would have loved it to be more, but that's just how it is. Now, 4 of those 5 seats, we were heavily involved in educating voters in. So huge shout out to all the Action for Liberty supporters. And then I guess my analysis, we're seeing voters break late for Republicans, which I think is what we're going to both say today. There will be seats picked up in the outer suburbs, plus rural seats that will switch from blue to red. And I wrote, bye-bye John Purcell of Bemidji, voted every time for Walz's powers, so he was gone. The Minnesota Senate is really a toss-up. Gun to my head, I say Republicans will have a 1-seat majority. So if you're following, they had a 3-person majority. They lost 2 seats, and they ended up with a 1-person majority. So I nailed it on the head.
Technically, Bach and Tomassoni caucus with Republicans, though.
Technically, blah, blah, blah. No, they're not Republicans, right? Now, Republicans love the traitors. We talked about this on a show a couple of weeks ago. They love the traitors to the Democrats, but Tom Bach was not a Republican, right? So
He's a blue dog Democrat.
yeah. Well, there was, put it this way, Republicans had a 1-person majority over everyone else, right?
Right.
Nice try. Jeez.
Okay,
What's that?
great. So this is a state legislative forecast that I think it will help in our predictions if we're talking about state legislative seats. Dawson, if you want to put that up on the screen. So this is the state legislative map, and I believe this should be for state house. And Dawson, if you click on the little up arrow next to the Minnesota, your screen looks different than mine. Scroll back up.
You're off the mic there, buddy.
And so at the top where it says toss up, that little yellow bar, click next to it. There's like an upper chamber. Okay. So if we want to talk about the Senate, there are all
Okay.
the seats there.
All right. Well, here's my prediction. Republicans have the majority still, and they probably pick up a couple seats. So I think Republicans will have at least a +3 majority in the Senate. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so currently they have, 31 seats?
31. No, it's 34 to 33. So 1-person majority.
Okay, right.
If you're counting, well, Tomassoni's dead, and Bach retiring. So technically it's 34 Republicans, 31 Democrats, 2 independents. One actually deceased, and the other one not running again.
Yeah, and I think Thomas Sony's seat was the one that was for sure flipping to Republican, regardless. I think it was Box that was more up in the air.
Well, go back
if
to
I'm
that
not
map
mistaken.
here, and you'll see that yellow up there. That's Box District. That's Senate District 3.
And who are the candidates running in that one again? It should
Oh,
say.
geez, we need Jesse.
You click on the yellow. It should tell you the candidates. Top left and top right. I can't hear you when you're away from the. Oh, jeez, sorry. There's this light in my way, so I have to like bend down in order to see
Oh
the
yeah,
screen.
yeah. I didn't put that in a good spot for you, did I? Well, anyhow, it's like Zupanich or whatever. I can't think of the name right now.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Jesse knows this by heart. Does it say that? Yeah, it's tiny. Oh, it's very tiny. Yeah, we would never see that. All right, anyhow, zoom out. I don't want to get into the individuals running in each of these districts. I want to kind of just get a scan. So you're seeing the yellow, which is the toss-up. Dark red, obviously, is going to stay one, Republican. The dark blue is going to stay Democrat. So they're actually showing Senate District, is it still 4? But if you look over by Moorhead, that was a Democrat. That was Kent. So that one's going to get flipped, go Republican, as most greater Minnesota. If you go to the far right, that's Duluth. That'll stay Democrat right there. Okay, no one's shocked on that one. So then it really all comes down to the Twin Cities in the southern Minnesota. So zoom in on that.
One also that St. Cloud district as well.
Yeah, but that's good. Oh, yeah, they do still have that. But that's going to go Republican, don't you think?
Is that Tamatice?
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. I
well,
think
there's
that one's-
two. I mean, there's 2 districts surrounding that.
Okay.
But one, like the one with St. Cloud proper, is going to be the one that the Democrats have a better shot at.
Mm-hmm.
So then if you go to southern Minnesota, you got Mankato, which is that yellow area. And then you've got and these
Oh,
these
this
are
is
showing,
back to the state house map.
yeah, well, yeah, but then you add the 2 together.
Yeah.
And then you've got that blue that's Rochester. And Rochester is going to go, that's the when we say this isn't an exact science because redistricting means there's a change, right? So that would be considered St. Jim's district. So that's going to go Democrat, right? Do you not think so?
Probably. I think if Republicans do well enough this year, there's a chance that Ken Nowitzki wins. And I've actually seen him put quite a bit of work into this race. So it's a lean blue district, but I think there is a chance that there's a pickup there. And look, if Scott Jensen wins, there's a good chance that Republicans down the ballot are going to win en masse. Like, it's going to be huge.
I think it's going to be huge. I just don't know if I would agree with that district. All right, go back up to the map. So then it really comes down to is the burbs.
Yep.
And yeah, if you could zoom in, and that's that, because anything inside the inner 494, 694's loop is pretty strong Democrat. So it really comes down to like Senate District 41, which is on the eastern side, right there on the Mississippi. Or I'm sorry, the St. Croix River. You've got what's the other big one that's kind of a flip because the southern half of that is Carla Bigram's old district.
The top half is part of Karin Housley's old district,
Right.
so it's a bit iffy. 36, I think that's Chamberlain's seat. That's going to be a little bit iffy because that's where Democrats are throwing the most of their money, from what I understand. And Heather Gustafson is the Democrat challenger. I think she's like a school teacher or something. So,
And what's really interesting about it is Democrats have a huge monetary advantage, and they always do in Minnesota, and this is one of the big problems with Minnesota, which would be one of the big arguments that hopefully Scott Jensen can win, because it would probably build the Republican base to a point where we can actually match these guys with money. When you haven't won for 16 years statewide, it just like there's a much better infrastructure on the left side. Luckily, the left's completely nuts. They're so crazy, and they're alienating people because you're not woke enough, right? So they do have that problem. But what I think, and this is what my prediction is, Republicans keep the Senate, which I think is not that bold of a prediction.
No,
I forgot to finish my point. The Democrats are now buying broadcast media, broadcast ads. So they're basically broadcasting through all the metro area for Senate districts like Chamberlain's, which is, or I was going to say 36, but I don't know what that district is by heart. But that's what they got to do, and it's like a waste. It's almost like a waste of money because if you live in Shakopee, you're still watching a commercial for a district you can't vote in.
Well, and they poured $2.8 million into like 5 ad buys that are showing around the state,
Right.
which seems like an enormous waste of money. But I don't know, maybe it's doing something. We'll find out on election night.
Marginally, but it's just like not the most efficient way to do it. So
Which
anyhow,
tells me they're desperate, by the way.
I think so. That's the read that I would have on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm putting GOP +3, at least +3.
Yeah.
I think they could be +5.
I think there's going to be at least 1 or 2, whether it's in the House or the Senate, 1 or 2 seats that surprises. I really do think so.
Meaning like Republicans win it that people really weren't tracking. Is that what
Right.
you're saying? And that's probably Rochester to you, right?
I'm not going to make that part of my prediction. I think I have more predictions like that in the House.
Okay.
I don't think people are tracking the House as much as they are the Senate.
All right. Well, let's do the House. What do you think? I'll let you go first.
I think Republicans win a majority, and I think it's like maybe by 5 or 6 seats.
Well, it can't be 5. It's got to be 6. It's got to be even. Unless
No,
there's-
they have a majority by 6 seats.
Yeah, I know, but it can't be 5. I'm saying it's got to be an even.
No,
number.
I'm saying what?
Yeah. So
I'm saying they pick up 5 or 6 seats.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. They would have so they would have a majority of 6. Well, actually, if they picked up 5, they wouldn't have that. I can't even do the math on the fly. Anyhow, the majority's got. So I saw someone talk about, well, what happens if it's 67-67? Because you could have a split in the House. So my thought is that's not going to happen, but that would be actually very interesting. How do they pick a speaker with 67-67?
There got to be examples from other state legislatures of this happening.
Yeah, but does that matter in Minnesota? I got to write a note here. Research 67-67. I'm very curious if it's ever happened in Minnesota. I'm not aware of it ever happening in Minnesota. So I think what happens is the Republicans at least have a 2-person majority. That's what I'm thinking. So are you ready to place? You're placing a number of, you say it's a pickup of 5 or 6. But what does that do? I'm trying to think on the fly because they're.
So I can tell you some of the
So
seats.
they pick up. Hold on. If they pick up 3 seats, that puts they're down by 5 seats.
Yes.
So that would put them at 67-67. If they pick up 6 seats, you're coming my way, where it's 68-66 Republicans.
Okay, let me just tell you the seats I'm thinking that
All right, there we
Republicans are picking up. Because I think we're both confusing ourselves.
Wait. I'm not confusing myself. My
I think
math's
you
checking
are.
out. Hold on, you just said pick up 5 seats, and they're down by 5 seats right now.
Well, then you
So
told
if
me
they pick
that
up 5
can't-
seats, it's even.
They can't pick up an odd number for some reason.
No, they can't. I said they can't have like if you were saying what the number is, Republican to Democrat, it can't be odd, unless you had like an independent or a libertarian party.
I'm still not tracking.
You're not tracking.
No.
Okay.
Why? Anyway.
Hold on.
Here's
hold on.
the here are the
if
seats.
Republicans if Republicans have 67 can happen, right? Republican Democrat.
Yeah.
So then let's say Republicans have 68. How many does that make for Democrats?
Well, 66. It would be an even number, but that's
There you
not what
go.
I'm
See?
saying.
We're doing math right on the fly.
Bridget, do you see what I'm trying to say?
I'm like, now what if they have 69? What if Republicans have 69?
Yeah, that's my point. Like they can
69.
pick up an odd number of seats. That's what I'm saying. They pick up 6 seats or 5 or 6 seats.
Hold on. So if they had 69,
Yeah.
the Democrats would have what?
65.
65.
Yeah, but then
So
Republicans
that's
is
a
still
plus
not.
4.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's got to be +2, +4. I thought you were
I
saying
see
plus
what you're
5 or
saying.
+6. You're saying they're picking up 5 or 6, right?
Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
are saying different things.
Yeah, so we're saying 2 different things. All I'm saying is the margin has to be an even number, unless there's like a third party, which
Okay.
isn't going to happen here.
I
There's
have
another
a couple
prediction.
seats in mind. I don't know if people are going to find this interesting.
This
or
is the
not.
best TV ever right here. Math on the fly. My God. This is what happens when you show up at 11 o'clock, William.
I have not.
We have no
done
show
math
prep.
in 5 years. I didn't do any math in college,
All right.
thankfully.
All right, so anyhow, let's talk about the seats you're seeing.
Yeah, well, and I think you're going to agree with me on this.
All right.
Republicans are going to pick up, gosh, I think it's 36A, wherever it's White Bear Lake, wherever Elliot Engen is running.
Yeah, I think that's safe.
He's going to win that. Mark Wiens is going to pick up Shelley Christensen's old seat. That's
Right.
41A.
Although, you know what's interesting about that, because I know that area, part of Shelley Christensen is Mark Bashofsky's district, the Stillwater area, and then the other part is Mark Veen's.
Yeah, it's
So I almost think
tough
like
to say how.
Bashofsky is more the Shelley Christensen
You
district.
think so?
At least, yeah, well, it's more the base of hers, the Democrats in Stillwater.
Well, because otherwise it would have been Bob Detmer's old seat, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the goofy thing about redistricting. This isn't an exact science here now.
Right.
It's like you look at a Bashofsky district, 33B, and that's Stillwater all the way up to Forest Lake. Well, Detmer used to have the Forest Lake area, and then Bashofsky's Stillwater, so he's got part of the district.
I do think,
But that's a pickup regardless, because if Bashofsky and Mark Veen's win, you just eradicated the Shelley Christensen, who's not even running again, who's my awful legislator.
and over in the West Metro, you have Andrew Myers, who's running for 45A.
Yep.
He's all but certain to win. That's a pickup because Kelly
Right.
Morrison used to represent the area,
Right.
Democrat. And I think then it gets a little bit tricky because then you have people like Steven Swoboda in 53B, Wendy Phillips in 25A, and Mark Bashofsky in 33B.
Yeah.
I think all three of those guys have a decent chance of winning, but I can't definitively say right
What
now.
about up north?
Oh yeah, what's his face is gonna lose?
Lislegard.
Dave Lislegard and
Now,
who's the
wouldn't it be
lady?
great? What's that?
Who's the lady?
Oh, Julie Sandstead.
Julie Sandstead, she's gone.
Yeah, she's gone.
I don't know why she's running again.
Yeah, well, she got redistricted, and now she's with an incumbent Republican in a more Republican district. I mean, she was already in a Republican district anyhow.
And guys, put in the comments if you think we're missing any seats that we're not talking
Tom
about.
Newfield actually says Gabriel Kretsch, is that? I don't know if that's how you say your last name, but will win in Burnsville Savage.
It'd be interesting.
That's a tough
That's
seat,
another
but
area to pick up.
It could be a pickup because that used to be a Republican area.
I see a lot of upside, I think, because I don't think Republicans lose a bunch here, right? There's probably some areas they could lose a seat, but I think there's a lot of potential for pickup. So I'm pretty confident saying that Republicans do win back the House,
Yeah.
and I'm confident saying it's at least +2.
Yeah.
We have a question about, I think it's the Senate though. Rachel Williams says, any comments on the CD7 Senate race with Jordan Rasmussen and Nathan Miller write-in?
SD7?
I guess it means SD7. It
Okay.
says CD7, but yeah, I guess.
Senate District 9 actually is. She's probably just referring to Senate. It's in Congressional District 7.
Okay.
The district, Senate District 9, and that's a fascinating one. I mean, Jordan Rasmussen, let's just be honest, is a complete establishment hack. There's a lot of people that have told us that there was shenanigans at the endorsement process, which we've seen. We very much...
He's a Republican, by the way, for those who don't know.
Yeah, Republican. Well, I mean, it's like Otter Tail County. It's very Republican.
What we like to call a rhino, Republican in name only.
There you go. We documented what happened in Morrison County, and Nathan Wiesenberg ended up winning, so it's good, But like there's some really bad cheating on both sides of the aisle. Clearly on both sides of the aisle. If you don't believe me, just ask Bernie Sanders, right? But the Republicans will cheat too in the endorsement and caucus process. I wasn't there. I don't know well enough in Senate District 9. But those allegations, I'd love to dig into them. It's not going to change the thing after the fact. But it was a really tight primary. Nathan Miller, who would be the outsider, more liberty-minded guy, going up against an establishment guy in Jordan Rasmussen. And Rasmussen won by, I think it was like a 1 or 2 point margin, right?
I think it was 48-52.
Was it 48-52? So
It was something close like that.
I thought it was even closer. It was real close. And then I guess Miller's doing a write-in campaign. So, I mean, I'm ready to make this prediction. Miller will lose. Write-in campaigns just generally don't work.
Mm-hmm.
There was one time where a write-in campaign worked. This was, it would have been Senate District 7 back in the day. This is like 10 years ago. And it was a Democrat legislator from Duluth. And he was getting some loving at rest stops off of 35 with younger men. Maybe even, not boys. Was it boys or younger men? Younger men for sure, okay? He was getting some loving at rest stops. Came out, story broke. Democrats, it was too late to get this guy off their ballot. So they did a successful write-in campaign because basically it's a Democrat stronghold, and the news got out, and they were able to, promote this write-in candidate. So that's the only write-in thing that I can think of. They technically can work in those circumstances. It's just not going to happen here. I'd love to be wrong about something like this. I just don't see it happening.
Well, Nathan Miller seems like a solid guy too, so I don't want to completely write him off. I think
You don't want to write him off. You want to write him in.
I want to write him in. Yes, yes.
Wow.
That was quick. I think he gets at least 10% of the vote writing in, because he's
So-
running a serious campaign. But as you know, with write-in campaigns, it's tough to gain traction.
I mean, I think that's a victory if you can get 10% in a write-in
It is.
campaign.
It really
right?
that's a big number.
Because that's like people literally have to know your name somehow and then go there and say, I am ready to vote against a Republican, even though I'm a big Republican, because that's who's going to do the write-in campaign and write Nathan Miller. So I love that prediction. I have no idea. I'd be very fascinating. So we're going to hold him to it. All right, let's talk about statewide now.
Yes.
All right, I'm going
This
to go
is
first.
what everyone's waiting for.
I'm going to go first. We're going to start with the Attorney General's office. Ready for it? All right. So Republicans haven't won statewide Minnesota in 16 years. Jim Schultz will be the next Attorney General.
They haven't
Nelson's
won.
gone.
It hasn't been a Republican Attorney General in 40 years, something like that.
I think it's like 50 years now. I think it was 40. I think that was the talking point, 46 years back in 2018. So
Yeah.
I think it's probably even 50 now. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
This state has been run by a Democrat Attorney General for 50 years. Now, the Democrat 50 years ago might be more of a Republican these years. Who knows? I mean, it's changed, right? But long story short, Jim Schultz wins. And I see this happen. I mean, the polling is suggesting that. Like, even the bad polling, that one is the one that's always been neck and neck. And you got to look at, well, when you look at first of all, looking at polls is really tough. But it tells you something, all right? Trafalgar Group is generally the most showing the most optimistic thing for Republicans, and whatever Survey USA with KSCP is showing is just ridiculous. But even in those races, I think Ellison and Schultz are well within the margin of error, and there's enough independence. And in that race, there's not like a third party. So I see all those undecideds breaking for Jim Schultz. I shouldn't say all, but a large portion or majority of those breaking for Jim Schultz, and that's what's going to deliver that victory. What do you think?
Well, do we want to go through all your predictions first?
Well,
or
no,
do we
let's
wanna
do. You tell me about the AG's race.
Yeah, I think most people think that the Attorney General's office is going to flip this year. And even though Trafalgar is traditionally seen as like a conservative or Republican pollster,
Yeah.
they get a lot of it right a lot of the time. And I think their most recent poll had him up by 4 points? Something
yeah,
like that?
Yeah, it was outside the margin of error,
Yeah.
right?
So
And a lot of independents or undecided. I keep saying independents, undecideds.
And let me ask you guys this. Have you seen a Keith Ellison sign in someone's yard this year?
There are some Keith Ellison signs along the North Shore.
Are
Because,
there?
when you get up by Grand Marais, it gets kind of lefty.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen them with a couple other Tim Walz, which are rare sightings. So they are rare sightings.
But you've seen more Jim Schultz signs than you have Keith Ellison
Correct.
signs.
But signs it is what it is. Ellison just did a big TV buy. So,
Mhm. It's a good indicator of where the energy's at.
yeah.
And I think people are really energetic about this crime issue. Crime is in
Yes.
the top 2 or top 3 issues, and it's clear that Jim Schultz is better on the issue than Keith Ellison.
And you also have to remember, Keith Ellison underperformed the DFL ticket in 2018 by 4 points.
Mm-hmm. It was the closest statewide race that year.
Right.
In a blue wave year,
In a blue wave.
nonetheless.
Right. All right. So I'm going to make another prediction. I think, well, first of all, for you viewers, do you know who Julie Blaha is? Do you? White Claw Blaha? No one knows who that is, right? No one cares about the auditor. So this is one of the races I think are going to go Republican because there's actually 2 pot party candidates in the auditor's race. So anyone that's disgusted with the Democrats will probably take their chance on the auditor's race to vote pot party. And they don't know who Blaha is. And the Republicans being elevated in this election, I think pretty much everyone realizes the Republican ticket's being elevated. I think you're going to see Ryan Wilson be the next auditor of Minnesota. So you're going to have at least two Republicans winning statewide first time in 16 years.
Yeah, I agree. Those are the only 2 races I'm confident that Republicans will win. I'll say confident.
Yeah.
The Attorney General and the State Auditor. Now, the State Auditor is like a less consequential office. That's why nobody's really paying attention. But if you look at one of the third-party candidates, Tim Miller? No. What's his name?
Yeah,
Tim Davis.
Tim Davis, yeah.
Tim Davis. He qualified for the public subsidy, and according to campaign finance reports, he got like $28,000 of the public subsidy. I'm assuming he's putting it to use. I really don't know, but he could really peel off a lot of Democratic votes that way.
There you go. All right, governors, go ahead. What do you think?
Are you starting with me?
I'll start with you. I'm putting you in the
Top-
hot seat because
yeah.
you showed up 11.
I am not confident enough to make a prediction either
I've got
way.
a gun pointing right at your head. What are you going to say right now? You got to pick
What kind
one.
of gun? I think that Walz wins re-election
Ooh.
by, regardless of, I think Jensen has a chance. Again, you're putting a gun to my head.
I'm putting a gun to your head. No, I'm not. YouTube. I'm not, no violence on the show.
Good point. Regardless of who wins, it's going to be within 1 to 2 points. I'm almost positive of that part.
Yeah, I would say you're right about that part.
I don't know how hard these third-party candidates are campaigning. I know Hugh McTavish, the Independence Party candidate,
Yeah.
he's not gaining a lot of steam, but he is putting a little bit of money into ads and whatnot. But I think the weed candidate gets like 5% of the vote probably. He gets 2. Walz gets. I can't even say. Regardless, it'll be within 1 to 2 points. I think Walz wins again.
I want to say Jensen now just to balance you out because I'm sure everyone's hating on you right now. And I want to defend William because he doesn't want to say this. It's just how he's reading it, showing he's neutral.
No, I would love to imagine the stuff that Republicans could get done if they actually wanted to get it done. But if there's a Republican Senate, Republican House, Republican governor, and you have awesome groups like Action for Liberty pushing the legislature to do stuff. You get school choice. You could abolish the income tax. You could, there's so many things you could do.
But you wouldn't do anything on abortion because that's not what's on the ballot, right?
Oh, we're only allowed to talk about that after November 8th, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. How many people know that's what's going to happen? Obviously, look, they're not my tyrant mug. I almost don't want to make a prediction on this because I'm just too biased on this. I really can't stand Tim Walz. I can't fathom this guy being reelected. I think that's just. I'd have a very hard time with Minnesota voters if they saw what this guy did and said, "Yeah, let's give this guy another term." But it's way too close for me to even make the call, right? I've long said I think Jensen's always in this. When a lot of people are like, "Oh, he's got no shot," back in like September because of the KSDP poll that said 18 points down, which was ridiculous.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, he's done. Walz won." I was like, no, this is bullshit. And plus, I think Jensen's going to be right where he is at Election Day. The reason I wouldn't go pro Jensen today or say that Jensen's going to win today is you just know that there's just all this money that's going to be dumped at the last minute for the Democrats. And so how much does that play into it? But what's really fascinating to me, William, is they've been dumping a lot of money this whole time, and Walz is losing. He's like his advantage just keeps going down in most polls. So it's like it's not working. And why would it work? Because people really care about inflation and crime, and he sucks on those issues.
Yep.
So I think I'm going to hold off. I think I'll probably make this prediction this weekend. I'm leaning more Jensen right now winning this, though.
Yeah.
And that's really bold because, really it's a toss-up in my head. Okay? And the one thing I would say is the Jensen campaign, I thought's been done pretty well because I think Jensen's a flawed candidate in many ways. He says dumb things off the cuff, and he's doing the typical apology tour, which I hate. Oh, I apologize for being conservative. I apologize for being pro-life. I hate that thing. But, the things that they did outside the box, like the billboards, which I saw people being critical, I love it. I love those billboards, like stop inflation, right? Those are real simple. That's what a billboard should be. The Matt Burke part to the ticket, great idea. The co-branding too. I've never seen it before. Think outside the box. I love that kind of stuff. I think it worked in many ways. I think a lot of Republicans could have won this election. Some might have done better than Jensen, but Jensen was good enough, in my opinion, to do it, to win this election. And he also raised a lot of money too. I think he raised over $1 million just in the last month alone.
Well, and I'll be honest and say I wouldn't have voted for any Republican candidate, but I am enthusiastic to vote for Scott Jensen because I think he'll actually follow through on some of this stuff as long as he's reminded of what campaign promises he's made.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to let him remember that he talked about getting rid of the income tax.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be glad to bring that up. All right. Any comments before we sign off here, Bridget?
Carol Hexam threw in some links to, I guess, the corruption that happened in regards to Nathan Miller's race.
Yeah, no,
so people wanna check that out.
Carol's reached out about this, and I just
okay.
haven't had time to dive into it because, quite frankly, there's just at this point it's a little late in the game. But it would have been real nice to know about this, like when it was happening. I have no idea. I don't want to just make accusations unless I've seen all the data. We definitely saw it in Morrison. We documented. I've seen other tactics, other places that people have used. Sometimes it's not like, for instance, the GOP just running a convention long. That's another thing. Well, one of the things in Morrison County, and we talked about this on the show, what they did to try to make sure Wiesenberg didn't get the endorsement is they held the endorsing convention. They follow most of the rules to do this, right? They had the endorsing convention. They just did it an hour away from Little Falls, which would have been where his support was and the majority of the delegates. They did it on a Friday night, which means they basically only have 3 or 4 hours to do the convention. So they were following the rules, but that was like stacking the deck against them. And he still overcame that, where then they had to call some BS rules, like saying that we're adjourning the convention, which they can't do. And so we do see them actually use some other tricks that aren't illegal. So it'd be really interesting to see the evidence in that one. But
Yeah.
it just, at this point, it doesn't matter according to this election. You just got to get your message out on a write-in campaign if you want to win.
Well, and regardless, if Nathan Miller wins, that's fantastic, and I'm excited to see him in the legislature. If he doesn't win, and Nathan, if you're watching this, stay involved. I can tell that he's an activist in the making for sure, based on all the grassroots support that he has.
Right. All right. What else, Bridget?
We have Brad Gans there making a prediction that the Bears will end the season at 6-11.
No one likes you, Brad. Just leave us alone. Well, it's an easy year to be a Vikings fan. I'll put it that way. Yes, I'm a Bears fan. My dad's from northern Iowa. That's why I'm a Twins and Bears fan. Let it out. Let it out.
Man, come on.
What?
You got to be a Minnesota Vikings.
No, not at all.
I'm proud to stand with our Minnesota Vikings.
All
And the
right, you
Twins.
stand with them. What else?
Okay, and we can end on the last comment from Nathan. He just saw a McTavish ad, and it's all Jensen talking points.
Yeah, I'm kind of nervous about that. He's basically like a pro-choice Jensen. Pro-abortion Jensen. I shouldn't use their talking points.
Yeah, but isn't Jensen pro-choice these days? I mean,
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know.
who knows? Oh, jeez. I'll put it this way. You can't do worse than Walz, right? That guy's terrible. All right. Thank you guys very much for watching this show, and we'll be back probably later this week with more cutting news in the political world in Minnesota. Thank you.